To the association we go. Dallas is once again at home taking on the Warriors as they focus on life after Luka, which is tough, I'm sure. NBA reporter Tim McMahon is also home and he's with us. Tim, AD left Saturday's game with a groin injury. What is the latest on his health?
Howdy, Christine. There's a sliver of good news here that obviously the Mavericks desperately need all the good news they can get, and that is the expectation is Anthony Davis will not need surgery to treat this adductor strain. It's a rest and rehab type of situation. Now, he's going to miss significant time. Obviously, going into the All-Star break, he's going to miss a chunk of the schedule coming out of the All-Star break, but the anticipation is that Anthony Davis will be back in a Mavericks uniform at some point this season.
Okay, so that's some good news for them, even though groin injuries can be a little tough. The Mavericks, obviously, as we know, acquired Davis in a blockbuster trade with the Lakers. Fans, they're not happy with Luka headed to LA. How has the team been dealing with all of that backlash?
Well, I think you have to define the team in two different ways. The team is in the guys on the floor, the players are taking it in stride. I would say they're even empathetic. You know, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis himself, on down the list have talked about, hey, we understand the emotion involved, the cycle of emotions, as Kyrie Irving said. You know, Klay Thompson's like, hey, you know, they're fans that are upset. They have a right to be. You know, they come to the game to get a little rambunctious. As long as it's not wildly out of bounds, so be it. Now, the team, as in the organization, honestly, they're taking an authoritarian style approach here. I have never seen a stricter enforcement of the NBA code of conduct. Like, really, the size of signs, I mean, derogatory messages on T-shirts like "Fire Nico" is a derogatory message. And they've blown this thing up into such a big story by trying to silence the protests and the emotion of the fans. And frankly, I really don't understand that approach where the action in the games is security scrambling around like yanking people out of the stands and booting them from the arena.
That's a little odd because you would expect that they would know that this would be the response. You have to do something on the court in order to change fans' minds. All right, thanks, Tim. I want to bring in Anscape senior writer David Dennis Jr. into the conversation. What is your perspective on the way that Dallas has started handling everything since the Luka trade?
This is a stunning lack of empathy and compassion from a Dallas Mavericks front office towards one of the more loyal fan bases in the league, a fan base that stood by them through all those playoff disappointments in the early 21st century, through a rebuild, through getting Luka Doncic and standing 10 toes down behind Luka Doncic, who this organization decided to trade in the middle of the night for Anthony Davis, and then they decided to spend the next few days gaslighting their fans into talking about how Luka Doncic, who just took that team to the finals, is not good on defense, is overweight, is lazy, and you have Dumont out here saying that he's not as conditioned as prime Shaquille O'Neal, which is an insult in itself, no disrespect to Shaq. And these fans cannot even go into the arena and express how sad and how hurt they are and can't even put out signs without getting kicked out. It's absolutely disgraceful by that front office to be treating these fans like this.
I think gaslighting is the perfect word. I feel like we overuse it a lot, but that is exactly what it feels like the Dallas Mavericks are doing. Coming to town tonight is Jimmy Butler and the Warriors, and it seems like the fan base is pretty happy with buckets in town. What has impressed you the most about this new collab?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised by how quickly they seem to work together. They had one bad first half against Chicago where they looked like they were struggling, but Jimmy Butler was able to pull together the off-ball movement that he's been doing with that team. Getting the ball from Draymond has been miraculous in the first couple of games. Add into the fact that he's getting to the free throw line. He's got more free throws than field goal attempts. Right now, 28 free throws in the first two games. That's the most since the team has had from one player since Durant was there. And then most importantly, in the minutes that Stephen Curry has not played, they've been a +6, which has always been a problem with that Warriors team. They have struggled without him. And Jimmy Butler gets in the game, gets to the free throw line, and stabilizes that team without Stephen Curry, which allows him to go into those third and fourth quarter flurries that make him so dangerous. I am surprised by how quickly it's working out. And if they keep doing like this, they can really make some noise in the West.
Yeah, there were so many questions about his fit because we know how Jimmy Butler is, but it seems like it's working pretty well. So it's been fun to see. David Dennis Jr., thank you so much. We'll be back with you in a little bit.
We're back on SportsCenter for just the second time this season. All 30 teams in the NBA will be in action. The other time, November 4th. Included in those matchups, ESPN doubleheader, Spurs, Celtics, Warriors, Mavericks, and the Knicks, 20-8 over the last 2 months, take on the Hawks. They've been a really good basketball team, and our really good NBA reporter, Tim Bontemps, is with us now. And Tim, you'll be at Hawks-Knicks tonight. New York could be getting some positive news on the injury front. What can you tell us?
Well, OG Anunoby, Matt, has been out since that Laker game 10 days ago with a toe injury. It was a game-time decision for last night's win over the Pacers before ultimately not playing. We'll see if he's back tonight against the Hawks here at MSG on the second night of a back-to-back. But if Anunoby sits out tonight, Matt, he'll have almost 3 weeks off before the Knicks come back from the All-Star break and play the Bulls and then the Cavs, and what's going to be a fascinating game come out of the break. So we'll see if the Knicks give him some extra time off with that injury. And then you've got Mitchell Robinson, who spoke to reporters yesterday in Indianapolis for the first time all season and has not played yet this season after having off-season ankle surgery. He talked about the fact that when he comes back, he wants to come back ready to go and not have any more absences. We've had a couple of years in a row now of Mitchell Robinson going in and out of the lineup. And Matt, for a Knicks team that has struggled defensively at times to have a center who can protect the rim, crash the boards, and fit next to Karl-Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson could be one of the key factors in the entire Eastern Conference playoff race if he could come back and do what he said and be a consistent presence on the court for the Knicks down the stretch here and into the playoffs.
Yeah, especially with how they've been playing recently over the last couple of months. I gave you that stat. They bring in another big guy, and then who knows if they stay healthy. Another big game tonight. Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs visiting the defending champion Celtics, 7 Eastern right here on ESPN. Boston's won 6 of 7. What's been working so well for them?
Well, for this Boston team, Matt, you've got a couple of things going on, right? They have played deep into the playoffs every year now for 7 or 8 years. So I think some of what we've seen this season as they've struggled over the past couple of months is a bit of exhaustion and just fatigue from the amount of games they played over the past bunch of years. And then there's also the fact that while this team has been one of the best teams in the East for several years, they are a team that has not been the defending champions. And they've admitted that they're getting the team's best shot every single night, something that may not have been the case in the past, even as they were one of the elite teams in the league. So now, despite missing Drew Holiday for the past few games, he'll be out again tonight, having other guys in and out of the lineup. We'll see if Jaylen Brown plays tonight with knee soreness. He did not play in Monday's win over Miami. He's questionable tonight. Hasn't really mattered. The Celtics are getting back on course and certainly look like a team that's ready to turn it up after the All-Star break and make a hard push to the playoffs when they hope to defend their title.
And for them, that's all that counts. I know there's been a lot of stuff up and to that point. You get in rhythm when it counts. We'll see if they can hoist the trophy once again. That's Tim Bontemps on a busy night in the NBA. Tim, thank you.
And here we are. It's finally reality. Luka's first game's a Laker. The first of many to come for Luka Doncic as a Laker. Doncic fires down court to James in stride.
This pairing is so unique in so many ways.
14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Luka Doncic's debut is complete.
And he takes the court for the second time tonight as a Laker. What will Luka do for an encore after those 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists in his debut? Let's bring in our NBA reporter, Dave McMenamin, with the foliage curtains behind him. Dave, Luka was on a minutes restriction for his debut on Monday. What can you tell us about the plan for him in Game 2?
Yeah, Matt, that remains. It's going to be in the 30-minute range for his minute restriction tonight in Salt Lake City against the Jazz. He has to be officially upgraded, but J.J. Redick said he expected both Luka Doncic and LeBron James to be in the lineup again together on Wednesday. So the Lakers can try to carry this momentum they've been building. They've won 12 out of 14. And tonight is their last game before the All-Star break, so they can kind of make everybody feel good about themselves as they go their separate ways for a week before reconvening in L.A. Now, Luka, they did a lot of good things in Game 1 that he played with the Lakers, but there was some rust, 1 for 7 from 3, and only played 24 minutes. But J.J. Redick said that Luka and the entire group played agenda-free basketball, so it wasn't about individual stats. It was about helping each other out on the court.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize it. We hadn't seen Luka since Christmas, and this trade comes in and everybody wants it to perform right away. But before the All-Star break, if you can get them some reps going into more rest, is only going to benefit them and LeBron, which, by the way, how's he been adjusting to life with Luka?
LeBron, privately, behind the scenes, has been very, very excited about the prospect of adding Luka Doncic to this group. You know, J.J. Redick likes to use the term basketball sicko. Basketball sicko is what LeBron James is. He loves the game. He eats it, breathes it. And to have someone with the abilities, the court sense that Luka Doncic has. It just makes LeBron think about all the possibilities they can have on the court together. You know, he got to the arena the other night before Luka's debut, about 3.5 hours before tip-off, and there was 18,997 gold, number 77, Lakers Luka T-shirts on all the seats. LeBron took one of those T-shirts, put it on himself, and went through his pregame warm-up. That, if anything, shows how excited he is to have Luka as a teammate.
Yeah, and I think LeBron knows as his career winds down that he's going to have to hand this franchise off to Luka Doncic. But to get there, they can make some pretty sweet basketball music until that time happens. Dave McMenamin, always making music with us. Dave, thank you.
All right, we are back with Anscape senior writer David Dennis Jr. So, David, what are you hoping to see from Luka in this second game and then after the All-Star break as well?
Yeah, so in the short term, I want to see Luka get some of that rust worked out, work himself into shape, which I'm sure he will do. But in the long term, the biggest adjustment that Luka Doncic needs to make is on the defensive end. That guy needs to improve his defense if the Lakers are going to stand a chance without Anthony Davis, who was, of course, the big defensive anchor on that team. And I know there's been a lot said about Luka and that defense, but we've seen him be able to do it. Last year, with that Dallas Mavericks team, their run at the end of the regular season was about defense. Luka was first in defensive rating as an individual player for the last month of the season. So he can do it. I think some of that defensive fall off has come from the fact that he's been the primary ball handler and has a high usage rate and has been gassed. That's not the case with the Lakers anymore because LeBron's going to hold the ball some, Austin Reeves is going to hold the ball some, and Luka has to use some of that energy to be a better defender if they're going to make a run in the playoffs.
The other thing is Luka said that there's a lot that he has to prove. I feel like that is one of the things he'll definitely be working on. So the Lakers, they currently sit at 4th in the West. What do you see as the ceiling for them this season now with Luka in the fold?
So the Lakers ceiling is about like 6'10", 7 feet tall, which is the size of a lot of those centers in the West that the Lakers are not going to be able to compete with. The Jokic's of the world, the Chet Holmgrens of the world, the Albert Senguns of the world, the Jaren Jackson Jr.'s. The Lakers had a trade, of course, that fell apart at the trade deadline, and now they're kind of stuck with Lynn, who they just picked up, and Hayes, and that's not enough in the middle to compete with those big guys in the West, those centers. The Lakers are going to have to find a way to either make up for it offensively, going small, or doing something, because they are in trouble if they have to line up with an all-star level center on the other side of the court come playoff time.
Apparently, Shannon Sharp think there's no issue with the Chet Holmgren situation in OKC. You're right about that, though, David. Okay, so sit there for a little bit, because last night, Kevin Durant reached 30,000 career points, becoming the 8th player in NBA history to do so. Only he and LeBron are active players to reach that milestone. Durant is more than 1,400 points away from passing Wilt Chamberlain for 7th. He's very unlikely to reach Wilt this season. All right, David is back. So the Suns, they lost the game against the Grizzlies last night. They sit at 11th in the West, 1 game out of a play-in spot. What do they need to do to get a chance at the postseason?
I think they're going to have to just pray really hard, because I just don't see an option for this team making it. I mean, they've tried it. They added point guards to get rid of some of those turnovers, to facilitate the ball. It still hasn't worked. Bradley Beal thing hasn't worked. This big three is a loss. It's a failed experiment, and the Suns really need to focus on what they're going to do next to get some of those draft picks back, because right now they don't have control over any of their picks until 2032, which means they need to make some moves. And unfortunately, the move that makes the most sense is Kevin Durant. For as great as he is, he's going to have to probably end up somewhere else for Phoenix to get some of those assets back in the future. But right now, I don't see a path for them in the playoffs to finish off this season.
Yeah, the KD experiment in Phoenix hasn't been working very well. So as you mentioned, just say a prayer. David Dennis Jr., thank you very much.
NBA